school mocked Alicia's dream, shutting her down before she could prove herself. Katie, the confident class star, dismissed Alicia's project as impossible, fueling a wave of bitterness and exclusion. But Alicia didn't back down. Fate gave her a chance to turn the tables. And just wait. This ordinary day turned into a breathtaking victory for justice, and the truth finally silenced every doubt. Alicia Johnson entered the classroom that Tuesday morning with a mixture of dread and stubborn hope muddling in her chest. The pale yellow walls, dotted with faded motivational posters, did little to calm her nerves. She gripped her folder tightly. It was stuffed with pages of sketches, business plans, and handwritten notes, her dream laid out in colored pencil and neat calculations. Her heart beat so loudly she thought the class would hear it as she waited for her name. Miss Cartwright, the math teacher, pushed her glasses higher on her nose and called, "Alicia, whenever you're ready." Alicia forced a smile, her fingers trembling slightly as she rose and walked to the front. A hush settled. Some students were genuinely curious. Others adopted bored expressions, their attention already drifting. Then, at the back of the room, Katie Monroe and her friends whispered and giggled behind their hands. Alicia began, voice wavering at first but gaining strength. She explained her idea, an app where black girls could design and sell handmade jewelry. She spoke about her own experience, how she spent afternoons making bracelets for her younger sister, how it felt to channel stories into little works of art, and how she wanted more girls to feel that power. Before she could finish, Katie's clear voice broke the silence. "Why would anyone want to buy those? It's not like they're real jewelry." Her comment hung in the air. Someone snickered. Others took it as permission to join in. Alicia's cheeks flushed, but she forced herself to keep going, describing features and goals, even as a wave of laughter rolled through the room. "Is this for charity or something?" one classmate added. "You should do something everyone likes." Ms. Cartwright interjected with a practiced, too-polite smile. "Thank you, Alicia. That's certainly creative. But perhaps for our school competition, you should think about ideas with broader appeal. Just a suggestion." Alicia nodded quietly and turned, her project feeling heavier as she walked back to her desk. Katie mouthed, "Good luck," with a smirk. At her seat, Alicia's hands shook so much she fumbled her papers, sending a few sketches to the floor. She bent to pick them up, wishing she could disappear. The rest of the presentations blurred together. Apps for organizing homework, ideas for new cafeteria menus, robotics kits pieced together by students whose parents bought them all the premium parts. Whenever someone presented, friends clapped and cheered. Alicia sat silent, the sting of exclusion biting deeper each time she compared her own idea to theirs. When the bell rang, she lingered in her seat, waiting for the others to rush out. Outside, the hallway was loud with after-class plans, echoing with giggles and teasing. Katie strutted past with her friends, barely sparing Alicia a glance. That afternoon, Alicia trudged home on sidewalks scattered with brittle autumn leaves. The wind picked up, stirring her braids, making her clutch her folder more tightly. At home, her mother glanced up from the kitchen sink, eyes immediately sympathetic. "How did it go?" Alicia tried to sound brave. "They didn't get it. They laughed. Miss Cartwright said I should do an easier project." Her mother dried her hands on a towel and came to sit beside her. "I know it hurts," she said softly. "It hurts because you care. And sometimes they laugh at what they don't understand. The only way you lose is if you quit right now." But later, alone in her room, Alicia broke down. Tears blurred her sketches. She read through every note she'd made, every list of goals. Her inspiration, her excitement. They all seemed so small, so naive in the face of scorn. Yet as the sun set, casting orange streaks across her window, resentment simmered beneath her pain, slow and steady. The anger wasn't explosive. It rooted itself deep, a refusal to accept the limits others set for her. The humiliation of being laughed at became something else, a challenge. She stared at her drawings with a new question in mind. Not will anyone care, but how can I make them care? After dinner, Alicia sat at the kitchen table while her mother worked late. The apartment was quiet except for her pencil scratching, new ideas pouring out on scrap paper. She began researching contests, Googling young entrepreneur scholarships. determined to find anyone who didn't judge her by trends or popularity. Every laugh replayed in her mind, but now it was fuel. That night Alicia lay awake, the shadows on her ceiling broken only by the smiling, hopeful faces she imagined girls like her, dreaming with open eyes. She promised herself she would not let them down. The world would have to see what she saw. The laughter would be replaced by applause, no matter how long it took. And as sleep finally crept in, Alicia realized what she felt most wasn't shame, or humiliation, or even anger. It was resolve. She was just getting started. Alicia Johnson stepped into her math classroom, feeling the chill of autumn air still lingering in her jacket as she sat at her desk. She kept glancing at the folder she'd prepared, pages crammed with jewelry designs and careful plans. The class buzzed with idle jokes and the steady hum of anticipation. Alicia tried to steady herself, knowing her turn to present was coming. Her name was called and she walked up, hands clutching her notes tight. Her project, a mobile app to help black girls create and sell their own handmade jewelry, felt deeply personal, but the room was bracingly indifferent. Alicia described how each bracelet could tell a story, how it could help girls realize their own creativity and connect with a community. As she spoke, she saw Katie, flushed with confidence, snicker and nudge her friends. Their laughter was sharp, dismissive, and quickly contagious. "Who would want this?" whispered one student. "Try something more popular," another called, half joking but loud enough for Alicia to hear. The giggles grew, rippling through the room. Even Miss Cartwright, always kind but cautious, hesitated. "That's quite unconventional, Alicia. Maybe something more mainstream next time." Alicia's face burned. She felt her ideas shrinking inside her as she hurried back to her seat, careful not to look at anyone. Katie glanced over with mock sympathy. On the edge of tears, Alicia focused on the messy swirls of color on her sketches. Each page now seemed childish, embarrassingly naive. The next presentations all got easy praise. Apps for sharing homework, robots built with expensive kits, ideas that felt safe and familiar. Alicia watched, shoulders hunched, feeling completely invisible and desperately wanting to be anywhere else. After final bell, she lingered in the hallway, letting the crowd thin. On her walk home, the wind tugged the edges of her folder, and leaves scattered under her feet. The disappointment pressed in. At home, her mother greeted her with gentle concern. "How'd it go?" Alicia hesitated, then answered quietly. "They laughed. They said my idea was unrealistic." Her mother hugged her, silent for a moment. "People laugh when they're afraid of change," she said. "That's how you know you're onto something." Later that evening, Alicia shut herself in her room. Tears came freely now. She felt defeated, misunderstood, and painfully alone. Yet as the light faded outside and the laughter replayed in her mind, Alicia felt anger mixing with humiliation. She looked again at her drawings and thought, "If they don't see the value, then I'll have to show them." She stayed up late, redrafting her plans, searching for contests, looking for anyone who would listen. With every design, every sketch, she built her resolve. The sneers and jokes became a challenge, a reason not to give up but to go further. Alicia fell asleep, exhausted but filled with a quiet, fierce determination. She promised herself she would not let their laughter be the final word. Tomorrow she would keep drawing, keep dreaming, and one day she would make them see. The week after the classroom presentation unfolded like a long gray ribbon, each day tied to the next by the same quiet ache. Alicia moved through hallways that felt wider than before, the noise of jokes and plans blurring into a distant hum. No one said much to her. Maybe they had already forgotten. She hadn't. The laughter lived in her memory like a chorus she couldn't mute, soft but persistent, coloring even the moments that should have felt ordinary. At home, the apartment held a careful calm. In the evenings, her mother returned with tired eyes and a warm voice, asking gentle questions that Alicia answered with small nods and softer words. She didn't want to hand over the weight she was carrying, so she carried it herself. In her room, beneath the steady glow of her lamp, She spread out her sketches in neat rows across the desk, bracelets with lines of text woven through the designs, pendants with shapes that felt like affirmations. The pages were bright, her mood was not. She kept rearranging them as if the perfect order might stitch her confidence back together. At school, she tried to keep her focus on assignments, but her attention drifted toward windows and clocks and the space between thoughts. When classmates laughed across the room, it pressed a bruise inside her that had nothing to do with them and everything to do with the echo of that day. Katie spoke less now, busy with her own project, yet the silence around Alicia felt just as loud. She found places to sit where the light was soft, the end of a bench by the main stairs, a quiet table near the library windows, a corner of the cafeteria where the hum of conversation turned into white noise. She listened. She observed. She waited for something in her to shift. Nights were the hardest. That was when the questions arrived. Was the idea too small? Was she fooling herself? Did she misunderstand what people valued? Alicia answered herself with routines. She outlined a simple budget for starter kits. She drafted a list of potential partners. A local craft store, a community center, a small shop that displayed student art. She wrote emails she didn't send, practiced lines out loud to a room full of silence, refined her plan with sharper language and clearer goals. The more she organized, the steadier she felt, even if the steadiness was fragile. On a quiet Saturday, she walked to the library. The building's hushed confidence soothed her. She searched online for youth programs, grants, and pitch events, scrolling through pages of guidelines and application forms. Some deadlines had passed. Some requirements felt too big. But there were openings, too small doorways that didn't care who had laughed in a classroom. She bookmarked a local innovation challenge that supported projects with community impact. The details were practical. Deadlines, word counts, a short video pitch. Nothing about popularity, nothing about applause. When she returned home, she spread the application checklist on the kitchen table and breathed slowly until her hands stopped shaking. She drafted a timeline for herself week by week, task by task, and taped it above her desk where it would be impossible to ignore. She revised her app description to make it clearer who it served and why it mattered. She mapped out a simple onboarding flow. She added 3 screenshots to show how a user could pick a message, choose a color palette, and preview a design. Each decision felt like a thread pulling her forward. Her mother found her there, bent over the papers, pencil tucked behind her ear. "You're building something real," she said softly, as if sharing a secret. Alicia nodded, the motion small but certain. The pain was still there, but it no longer set the rhythm. She was setting it herself. In the days that followed, Alicia practiced speaking about her idea without defending it. She focused on value, what the app enabled, not what it lacked. She replaced apologies with clarity. She watched short talks online about telling a story with purpose, pausing to write down lines that resonated. Lead with the problem, prove the solution, show the impact. She didn't memorize them. She folded them into her own voice. By midweek, the edges of her doubt had dulled. She still felt the tender place where ridicule had landed, but around it grew something sturdier. Patience, discipline, a calm that didn't need validation to keep going. When she caught herself listening for echoes, she returned to the work, one paragraph edited, one slide tightened, one sketch improved. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't even relief. It was motion. Late one evening, with the apartment quiet and the city outside settled into its softest sounds, Alicia finalized the first draft of her submission. She checked the requirements twice, then saved everything in a neatly labeled folder. She didn't hit send. Not yet. She wanted to approach it fresh in the morning, to read it one last time with clear eyes. She turned off the lamp and stood by the window, looking out at the thin line of streetlight along the curb. The ache had not vanished, but it had changed. It was no longer just pain. It was proof. Proof that the dream mattered enough to hurt and to carry forward anyway. She returned to her desk and placed the folder in the center, straightened the pencil beside it, and took a long breath. Tomorrow would be another ordinary day. And inside it, she would do one extraordinary thing. She would keep going. Alicia discovered a community contest seeking new ideas from creative young people. The application made her nervous, but she poured herself into her submission, polishing her presentation and carefully recording her pitch. Each step, though challenging, brought a fresh sense of purpose. After sending everything, Alicia was still unsure if it would matter. Days later, a message arrived. She was selected as a finalist, invited to share her idea with real judges. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. The door ahead was open, and her dream was finally being seen. On the morning of the final contest, Alicia dressed carefully, smoothing the collar of her shirt and straightening her hair in the mirror. She practiced her pitch in quiet whispers, the words finally sounding strong and confident. The world outside her bedroom felt transformed. Every step she took that day echoed with possibility. Her mother drove her to the community center, squeezing Alicia's hand before she went inside. The entire building felt charged with anticipation, judges chatting, hopeful finalists rehearsing, and staff bustling about. Alicia set up her display with steady hands, arranging sample jewelry pieces and colorful app screenshots. When her turn came, she stood before a panel of adults who looked at her with open, attentive eyes, not glazed over, not dismissive. For the first time, Alicia felt the weight of her story actually matter. She spoke about her inspiration, how creativity could open doors for others, how her project was built on hope and resilience. As she finished, the room was quiet. One judge nodded with genuine interest, another asked thoughtful questions. Alicia realized her work had found a willing audience, one that listened and saw her potential, not just her obstacles. The jitters faded into calm pride. Later that week, Alicia sat at her kitchen table, phone in hand, refreshing her email again and again. When the message finally arrived, confirming she had won the $10,000 grant, shock washed over her like sunlight. She called to her mother, voice trembling with disbelief and joy. Her mother hugged her hard, tears glistening in her eyes. Monday morning at school, Alicia walked in with new purpose. She visited the main office and quietly handed the contest announcement to Ms. Cartwright, who gasped in surprise, staring at the grant amount in wide-eyed silence. Rumors spread all the way down the hallway to Katie, who stopped Alicia near her locker. "That's real," Katie whispered, almost in awe. Alicia smiled, holding the printed certificate. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady. For the first time in weeks, the noise around Alicia faded. It was no longer laughter or dismissal, but a hush of respect and curiosity. Peers congratulated her. Teachers nodded approval. Even those who never noticed her before were now asking questions about her app, eager to learn more. Alicia realized that every bit of pain she had wrestled with, the loneliness, shame, and doubt, had led her right here. The recognition felt like a gentle wave, washing away old hurts. But more than anything, Alicia was proud that her project could inspire others to dream bigger. She saw how her win made classmates reconsider what was possible, how it could encourage girls across her city, maybe beyond, to pursue their own creativity. At home, Alicia created a vision board for her next goals, now believing in her ideas with an energy that had once seemed impossible. That night, sitting beside her family, she spoke about the importance of believing in yourself, even when no one else understands. Everyone listened, hearts full. Alicia's dream wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to anyone who had ever doubted, struggled, or fought to prove they mattered. With each passing day, Alicia's victory grew from a personal triumph to something greater, a catalyst for hope, resilience, and pride. The silence that once felt heavy now held space for possibility and connection, leaving Alicia and those around her with a sense of inspiration that would linger for a long time.